What's going on, everybody? So today we are working on the ST, and as you can see here, we are doing a full brake job. So I'm actually going to be upgrading the brakes to the Focus RS brakes. So starting off with the rears, I just went with some Hawk HPS 5.0 street pads. I didn't want anything too crazy, and it should keep the dust down. I was running EBC Rotors and yellow stuff pads, and they would get super dusty super fast, so I want to switch it up and go with these. So I just got some Advic rotors, I guess you call them, just high carbon rotors, and then I've got Goodridge stainless steel lines for the rears. Got some calipers here from a Mazda 5 I picked up from the junkyard. Took about like 20 minutes or so just to get them off. So swapping these caliper brackets out, it will let you run the larger Focus RS rotors. So that's why I went with that. I got some Motul RBF 600, and then I got some CENTRIC high carbon rotors for the front. So I think these are like 350 millimeter rotors for the RS, and then of course the Hawk HPS 5.0 street pads for the front as well. And then for the actual Focus RS Brembo calipers, you can see here BRCF 354 and BRCF 356 are going to be the unpainted, well, I guess they're painted, but they're the gray color rotor or calipers for the RS. So I went with those because I'm going to leave those rear calipers on there. I didn't really want blue, checking up the vibe. So we also got, the Goodridge stainless lines up front, and then we got our banjo bolts and washers and whatnot here. So I'm just gonna get cracking on it, and I'll keep y'all updated on how everything goes. So I'm really looking forward to getting this done. All right, so we got T45 here, T45 down here, and so the sway bar is going to be in the way, so usually you'll just disconnect this right here and you can flip it up out of the way. And then there should be 2 bolts back there too that we'll get to. All right, so I will say, doing the rear calipers, much more of a pain than the fronts. So the way I do it is I'll disconnect the sway bar here. So it's a, I can't remember on the OE ones. These are white line sway bar and end links. So it's a 14 millimeter. Just use a wrench to remove the nut, and you can hold the inside right there. It's a 5 millimeter Allen. So you just take that off, put a jack underneath this control arm down here, or I guess the spring tower, and jack it up a little bit to get the pressure off, and bam, you're in business. All right, and then once you get the caliper slide pins out, make sure your parking brake is off, and you can just wiggle the caliper off. And then the 2 bolts holding the caliper bracket in are 13 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and get those off and then swap them out with the Mazda 5 brackets. All right, so there's a little 8 millimeter nut on the back side of this. You'll loosen. I've got the line tucked up right now. I'm going to go ahead and attach the new line to the caliper, and then we'll loosen this up, connect a new one on. So I got it back assembled together. So this hard line is an 11 millimeter, and then this is a 19 millimeter. And of course you want to make sure you get everything bolted back up, and make sure you get the parking brake cable on there, preferably before. I forgot, so I had to use some vice grips and really finagle that thing in there, but she's back on there, and it's time to go to the other side, and then I'll go do the fronts. Something else I want to mention, these little clips right here that come with the stainless steel lines, they have a little curve to them, and so when you're putting them on, back here, you can see right there, you want to put the curve facing forward, so have the peak, or like the apex of the curb, facing forward. And I just use like a little ballpoint hammer, or like a little mallet to knock those guys in. Got a little bit ahead of myself here, but Basically same thing here, 2 T45 bolts to get the caliper opened up, and then you've got 2 18mm bolts on the back side of the bracket, and then same deal up here. It's an 11mm to unscrew the hard line, and then yeah, we'll just run it back through here, and we get these rotors off and the bracket off, then it's time to throw the Brembos on there. Yeah, so this is another 8mm holding that little bracket in, and then you just use another flat head to pop that clip off right there. All right, for the more visually inclined of you, might have noticed it is dark outside. Ran into a few speed bumps, but everything is on there and we are good to go. So I bled all the brakes. Started with the right rear, then left rear, then right front, then left front. So on these, you want to start with the outside drain, and then you want to move to the inside one. I did 2 laps around just to be sure I got all the air out, because there was still some coming out when I did that second run. So glad I did it. Everything looks to be solid. I haven't noticed any leaks. So all that leaves us left to do is just drive it and bed the brakes in, and you know, see how it performs. So I'm pretty stoked, and hopefully I can do a follow-up video here soon. All right, so it's the day after, and you can see here everything's kind of settled in. These are the NK NTO3 wheels, and fitment's pretty good. There's no rubbing or anything, so anybody rocking these wheels, they do fit. One thing I want to mention is if you take the parking brake cable off on the rears, make sure when you get those back on that you use the parking brake a few times, just to get the tension, I guess, reset. All right, y'all, so it's been about 2 weeks since I got these on. I'm just under the car doing an oil change right now, but I figured I'd show y'all. So I guess I didn't cover like actually installing the brake pads and everything. I'm sure there's plenty of videos out there, guys changing pads on the RS, but basically I think the easiest way is to remove that center bolt right there, the one that's right under my finger, and then there's like these 2 little pins right there that you'll end up hammering in. But if you put one of them in, and then there's like this little clip right there, you can kind of see right there. You kind of like hook the clip up in there, and then, you know, this is after you slide the pads in, then you can put the center bolt in and like get them all snugged up. Then you're just going to use like a little mallet or something to pop those slider pins through. But so far my impressions of it, it feels a lot more consistent and linear in terms of like brake feel. I mean, I haven't really had a chance to push these too hard, but they do feel a lot more predictable, and I can tell I've had to brake hard a few times, and they definitely stop up a lot better than the old ones. So I would say this is definitely a worthwhile upgrade. You know, hopefully I can get some track footage in the future and kind of share my thoughts with y'all. But I do want to run some ducting eventually, probably run it from the fog light area up there, and then like through this fender liner right here, and dump it out sort of like in this area, and cool those rotors off a little bit more. But so yeah, I'm thinking about running some ducts right there through the fog light bezel. Hopefully I can keep the fog lights, and then it should run straight into that wheel well right there. And you know, if I was gonna go super try hard with this eventually, there's some company out there, I forget the name, but they make heat extraction vents that go right there, so you could, you know, if you're going for like a max effort sort of build, you could do that. But yeah, in the meantime, this should do the job. So yeah, there's the new brakes there. And there's the ones on the rear. So if y'all have any questions, just let me know.